What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Spanko, and today I'm back with another deck profile. This deck profile was inspired by Team COG, Team COG. Those guys, I literally watched their Crusadia deck profile and I was like, you know what? This is actually a really cool deck that I haven't visited in a long time, and I haven't actually updated it on the channel for a long time. And so I took the inspo from their deck profile, changed it up a little bit, added a little Spanko spice, which you guys are going to see in the video. And yeah, this is the Crusadia OTK deck profile. Now, if you guys want to see a going first profile, if you guys want to see all those different variants, let me know in the comment section down below. But if you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you guys haven't already, make sure to check out Team COG's channel. I'll leave a link to their channel in the description below. Of course, they're the ones that inspired me to do this, and it's not card for card their list. However, because of the inspiration, I feel like they should get some credit, or you know, they do deserve some credit for this. So yeah, shout out to them. They're amazing guys. I hit them up and I was like, yo, I really like this, can I take inspo for my profile? And they literally replied and they were like, yep, you're good, go ahead. And I was like, all right, bless, so we're gonna do it. So yeah, that's really all I gotta say, and off to the deck profile. Okay, so off to the main deck. We are starting off, of course, with the Crusadia monsters, and you're playing triple Crusadia Maximus, triple Crusadia Draco, triple Arborea, triple Leonis. The reason you're playing triple Leonis now will make a lot more sense in a little bit, so I'll explain that to you in just a second. But triple Leonis, and you're playing double Reclusia, and then instead of playing the third Reclusia, you're playing the one World Legacy World Crown. Now, you're pretty much maxing out on the Crusadia monsters, as you can see here, but again, you're just cutting the Reclusia down to 2, just because I felt like the effective Reclusia does come up here and there, but not enough where I was like, I want to max this out. But you do want to max out the rest of them, because you really need to see names in this deck, and that's pretty much how you OTK your opponent, right? It's a pretty big monster on its own, so putting it under an Equimax is actually really strong. But World Legacy World Crown is obviously just also a negate, which is kind of nice. It just gives you that interaction that you pretty much don't have throughout the rest of the deck. So that's why World Crown is really, really good. I think this is one of the better summons. You don't want to play it at 2 or 3 though, because again, it's a once per turn summon. You don't want to have multiple in your hand. It's not that great that way, but World Crown is still pretty good. And now you are also still maxing out on triple Parallel Exceed. I think any deck with a Link 1 monster has to be playing Parallel Exceed. Now, it's kind of weird. I was between 2 and 3 with this deck. I decided to play 3 because, I mean, it'll make sense a little bit later, but I'm playing Desires, and because we're playing Desires, I obviously wanted to play the third one, because if I banish the one of them, it's okay, the other ones will still go off. So I'm not mad about playing 3. I think 3 is still the correct ratio. You also want to see it pretty much every single turn. If you see this early, it's actually a lot better, because it makes it so that you can go first, end on a Rafflesia, end on something like an Apollo. There's a lot of other combos that you can do if you open the Exceed, where if you're stuck going first, you can still play going first. And that's the biggest problem this deck always had if you play the OTK version, is going first, right? But with the Exceed now and all this, you can still very much go first. And I'm going to show you guys a combo later on in the video where you can make the Apollo with the Equimax. Apollo has 2 negates. Equimax will have Crusadia Crawler under it with a negate as well. So you're pretty much getting interruptions if you're going first still. So that's why you really need Parallel Exceed to still play. But of course, this is a go second focused deck, so we are playing a bunch of cards that help us go second and OTK our opponents. And the first thing we are playing here is triple Nibiru. Now, I understand in Team COG's profile, he didn't play the Nibiru, and I know the logic behind not playing Nibiru is you kind of want your opponent to establish a board. OTK decks like this work better when your opponent does establish a board, right? Because realistically, Equimax is doing the damage through another monster, right? It's not just attacking directly for game. But Nibiru still does give you that kind of kaiju-ish presence, because you're still putting a token to their side of the field that you can destroy. You can put it even in attack position, because a lot of time people put the Nibiru token in defense position, but you can put it in attack position if you want to OTK your opponent that way, right? So Nibiru is still pretty good. Also, a lot of the time I noticed that combo decks can play through a Nibiru still, and so what Nibiru does for me is that it doesn't necessarily always stop my opponent completely from playing, but what it can do is it can disrupt them just enough where if they can only put up 1 negate on the board, or just very small boards, then I can end up OTKing them anyway. So that's why I think Nibiru is still very, very relevant. It's still kind of like a kaiju in the sense that you're still giving your opponent a monster. Also, having Nibiru on your side of the field is still pretty good, because that's 3k more damage that you can do, right? So Nibiru is really good in that sense. We are obviously playing the kaijus. Double Gamma Seal, 1 Godarla, and 1 Humongous. The reason I'm playing these 4, Godarla is pretty much just for the Tri-Brigade matchup, where if I draw into this, at least I can Godarla over the barrier statue, because his deck does obviously have a hard time against barrier statue. So Godarla is pretty good in that sense. You have the Nibiru, which also kind of technically outs that, because they won't be able to do the combo without 5 summons. So Nibiru outs that. Godarla is just one of those ones, again, if you can get to the Godarla, you out the barrier statue as well. So that's why I'm playing that one. But of course, you're playing Gamma Seals because it's the smallest, and Humongous is the second smallest. And just because of the format we're in today, and just because it's the Morgue being so prominent, Godarla is obviously very important. So we are playing that, and that rounds it off for the monster lineup. A bunch of cards cards over here, the Crusadias and the Parallel Exceeds and whatnot, to summon a bunch of monsters all at once, and then a bunch of hand traps or kaijus slash Nibiru's over here to break my opponent's board. So that's pretty standard, I would say, in all Crusadia builds. And yeah, I wouldn't change these ratios up. The more I tested, the more I love these ratios. So next off into our spell cards, we are playing Double Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. This card 99% of the time is going to get negated, especially if you do it first. Like the first thing you do is activate Slumber. This is 99% of the time going to get negated, but that's fine. It getting negated is not bad because it means the rest of your plays will resolve, and if that happens, then you can end up OTKing your opponent anyway. So even if this doesn't go through, a lot of the time is this just activating and your opponent having to stop this means that your other stuff can't get stopped because now they've used their cards to stop whatever you have, and then you can continue going. So Kaiju Slumber obviously at 2 is still really good. Double Crusadia Power and 1 Revival. I actually took these ratios off of Team Cog. So I actually didn't like the Revival anymore. I cut this out of the deck completely originally. But the reason I decided to play the 1 Revival is because, again, he did make a really good point in his video where he said, sometimes you're not going to OTK one shot through one monster, but what Revival does for you is that you can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. So that can help you OTK your opponent, right? Because it's not always just going to be equal max and attack for like 8k damage right away, right? Sometimes you're gonna have to attack multiple targets, so Revival does give you that option, especially if you also open a power in your opening hand. You can just search the Revival off of your Regulex, and then at least gives you another target for your Regulex, right? So that's why I really like this. Then we are playing 1 Monster Reborn and 1 World Legacy Succession, just 1-on-1 extenders. There's nothing wrong with playing these. I didn't want to play 2 of this because, I don't know, if it's a once per turn. If I saw it in my hand, it's not that great. Like, if I saw multiple in my hand, it's not that great. And I mean, 1-on-1 is not pretty much. You're pretty much playing 2 Monster Reborns. Not that bad. I really like these ratios. Now, the reason you're playing triple Leonis is because you're playing triple Book of Moon. Now, this is my own tech, and this is my own thing that I kind of decided to play in Crusadia, and I think it's really good. So it kind of does the same thing where I mentioned with the Revival, where attacking your opponent multiple times is kind of like important. Sometimes it's not just going to be equal max OTK just at once. Well, Book of Moon does kind of the same thing for you where, okay, so if you activate this, they are kind of forced to negate it. Let's say you use it on a Savage Dragon, right? Your opponent puts up a board with Savage Dragon. They're going to lose that Savage regardless. Whether it gets booked or it's going to negate the effect, they're going to lose that Savage effect, right? And the really nice thing about a deck like Crusadia is 1-for-1s in this deck are great. So if I activate the Book of Moon and he negates it and he stops it, then I can just continue with my plays. The nice thing about Book of Moon is that if this does resolve, okay, then you have the Leonis to do piercing damage. And now piercing damage with an Equimax, with a Maximus, let's say, under it, that could do double damage. That's a lot of damage.
Oh, that's a lot of damage!
That's why I thought Book of Moon was really good. Also, the nice thing about Book of Moon is obviously going second, you can just activate the Book of Moon to book your opponent. But going first, if you're forced to go first, right? If your opponent is like, okay, well, I know you're playing Crusadia. I don't want you to go second. I don't want you to OTK me. You can go first. You can just set the Book of Moons. These are still disruptions. It's a quick play disruption right here. So I thought these cards were really good, very underrated. I think Book of Moon is one of the best cards like in this kind of deck where if I just go 1-for-1 and I bait out your negate, that's fine. Because if I have 2 Crusadia monsters in my hand, I'm OTKing you regardless. So just being able to get the Book of Moon and being like, okay, now your Savage is gone, I can just go for game here. So that's why Book of Moon is so good and super underrated. I am playing 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 super damaged Harpy's Feather Duster, but I just wanted to show this one off because, I don't know, I really like this prismatic rarity. I'll get a near mint one eventually, but this is the damaged one. Yeah, so Harpy's Feather Duster, I am playing this obviously because back row decks, you don't want to lose outright to back row decks. Now, Team Cog played Hey Trunade. I tried it, I'm not gonna lie. You could also play Lightning Storms, I'm not gonna lie. If you wanted to, you could cut the Book of Moons, play something like Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is obviously still very good, but this is more or less, if you think about it, it's more or less a budget deck, and I didn't want to put a price tag on this deck that, you know, most Crusadia players, to be honest, probably don't want to put the money down on something like a Lightning Storm. So Harpy's Feather Duster is just fine, obviously, to get rid of your opponent's back row. The thing is with Hey Trunade is it's only set cards. So that's kind of why I was like, okay, I don't want to play the Hey Trunades. But again, there's nothing wrong with the Hey Trunades. I just thought Book of Moon was just way better in a lot of situations. Also, I noticed the Harpy's Feather Duster and like Hey Trunades and Lightning Storms and stuff, they're only really good against like the Eldritch matchup. Against most other matchups, I noticed that Book of Moon is just enough for you to just stop there. A lot of the other decks in this format are more or less combo reliant decks. Even if you think about Dino, right? If you Book of Moon a Dino player, it's kind of hard for them to play as well. So like Book of Moon is still pretty good. That's why I played just the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. If, you know, I encountered the Eldritch matchup, and you can just side in back row hate, right? So I think that's fine. But again, if you have Lightning Storms, definitely put in the Lightning Storms. Because Lightning Storm is really good against monsters and against back rows. So obviously, if you have the Lightning Storms, use them. But if you don't have them, don't worry. I think this is just fine. Then we are playing Double Desires. The thing is, you're playing 3 of every year Crusadia monster, so I don't really care if I banish a bunch of stuff. I'm only playing double because I don't want to draw into a second one. I know that logic is weird, but I just don't want to draw into the second one. I would very much prefer activating the Desires and banishing one of the second Desires. Like,
that's just what I prefer. You can't play Extravagant or Prosperity in this deck because obviously you need your extra deck. So Desires is the best draw card, and you really don't want to always use it on your very first play. So what I mean by that is, like, if you open Desires, you're not just going to shotgun your Desires. What you're going to do is, if you see your opponent has negates on the board, try to bait those negates out before your Desires, because you want this to resolve. You really want this to resolve. And lastly, you're playing one Gravekeeper's Trap Hole and one Crusadia Crawler. Now, you guys might be wondering, Spanko, if you're going second, why are you playing these? Well, you still lose to Nibiru. I won't lie, you still lose to Nibiru. So if you open your Parallel Exceed, you can make a Rafflesia, and then now you're kind of Nibiru-proofed with your Gravedigger's Trap Hole, and Rafflesia will actually be your 5th summon. So they won't be able to Nibiru you before Rafflesia, and then when you summon Rafflesia and they try to Nibiru you, you have this. This also inflicts 2,000 damage to my opponent, so it makes the OTK even that much easier. Crawler is really good because if you're forced to go first, you can just set it. It's not that great, I'm going to be honest, it's not that great opening it up going second, but it's still worth playing because when you're forced to go first, you can set it up and it becomes a negate for you. So yeah, that's why you're playing just the one-on-one. You don't really want to draw this. You don't really want to draw this either, but I mean, technically if you draw this going first, it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, that's why you just play this for the Rafflesia, and you just play this when you're forced to go first. So off to the extra deck here, we are playing double Equimax. If you don't OTK the first time, you OTK the second time. So you want to play double Equimax always, double Regulex. Now I really like Regulex at 2. The reason I like Regulex at 2 is because sometimes, again, if you don't OTK the first time, okay, so I'm going to say this. Also, when you make the Apollo play, you need the Regulex. And so what happens is sometimes I like to have the second Regulex because if I'm going second or on my next turn, I want to make the second Regulex so I can OTK my opponent. So that's why I'm playing the 2. 1 Spatha, you're really playing this, you don't play the Guard Dragons, you don't need to move stuff anymore, but you're really playing this because when you do the Apollo combo, you need to do this, and you need special summon under the Spatha so that you can make Apollo. So that's just part of the combo, but yeah. So Spatha is important for that. Triple Magius, obviously Magius is your best one. You need Triple Magius, your Link 1. Yeah, you always want to go into this. Every single turn, you're pretty much going into this. Playing 1 Apollo, just again, when you're forced to go first, you have an Apollo combo, is pretty good. You have a Mech Knight, Crusadia Avermax. Avermax is just one of those cards that not a lot of people can out, to be honest with you, and it's very easily made in this deck. And 1 Borrelsword Dragon. Now, I will say, okay, so this is a 15 card extra deck, but here's a 16th card that I'm going to show you that you can choose to play. Now again, because I said this is more or less a budget deck, I'm choosing to play the Borrelsword because you can get the gold ones, they're pretty cheap. However, if you wanted to play the Access Code over the Borrelsword, Access Code is very easily made in this deck as well, so you can play Access Code over the Borrelsword. I just wanted to show you guys that one or the other is perfectly fine. You don't have to play Borrelsword, you don't have to play Access Code. If you have this, if you have access to Access Code, funny enough, then you can play the Access Code over the Borrelsword. If you don't have this, don't worry, I know this is expensive right now, so just play the Borrelsword. It's perfectly fine. Borrelsword is honestly just a really good card still. Access Code is just one of those things where, because it only needs 2 effect monsters, you can literally use 2 Link 2s and make into this, which is very easily. So that's why you could do Access Code as well. Really up to you. I'm just gonna put this over here. I'm gonna put it over here to the side. Just don't count this as part of the deck profile technically. You're just one or the other, okay? Then for the rank 4s, you're playing 1 Dweller, 1 Tornado Dragon. They just come up once in a while. Again, if you make the Parallel Exceed play and you're going second against a back row deck, you're not gonna make Rafflesia, right? You just make Tornado Dragon to start popping their back row, right? You have a Rafflesia, of course, when you're forced to go first, and a Dugaris. Sometimes this helps you OTK if you need it. You don't really go into it too often, to be honest with you, but it's just a nice to have because when you do go into it, it is really clutch. So that's really it for the extra deck.
Okay, so that's it for today's deck profile. If you guys have any suggestions, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below of this video. I love hearing what you guys have to think. If you guys play Crusadia, you guys have any ideas that you guys want to share, put it out to the community, give it to me. That would be amazing. So obviously put all your suggestions in the comment section down below. I love hearing from you guys. If you guys did enjoy the video though, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, shout out to Team COG for giving me the inspiration for this deck, giving me pretty much the idea to update this deck because I haven't updated in a long time on the channel. So yeah, that's really all I gotta say. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments of what you guys want to see next or what deck profiles you guys want to see, and I can try to make it happen. So with that, Spanko signing out. Peace.
Get up, we want you to get on your feet.